Palmer read the statement that Jalen Carter shared on Twitter, and Jalen seems to believe from his statement that he will be exonerated of any criminal wrongdoing. That's what he said. Look, guys, I don't know what's going to happen next for Jalen Carter, what's going to happen next for Georgia. I know a lot of people want to solve those problems. We don't work for Georgia's administration, and we can't solve them. There are ways to go about it and probably to make things a little bit safer, and maybe that means you had to take some car keys away from players. But what I do know is it's just sad, man. It's sad for Devin's family. It's sad for Chandler's family. I don't know what Jalen Carter did. Maybe he panicked in this thing. Maybe we'll learn some facts and details that show that he actually did the right thing, or maybe we'll learn that he did panic. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what happened. We just know that the warrant for his arrest was out there. I just can't escape how tragic this is, and these developments don't make it any easier.
Not even a little bit. I think most of us, I hoped against hope that this wasn't alcohol related. Obviously, it was. I mean, 2.5 times the legal limit is a lot. Listen, a lot of people have done that. Honestly, it's one of those things, man, where she couldn't have paid a steeper price, and it was Chandler LaCroix. She couldn't pay any steeper of a price, and Devin Willock also paid a price for that as well. And there's so many what ifs in this situation, and it was senseless. And it does appear that there is a situation at the University of Georgia. I don't think it's a cultural problem. I don't think it's systemic, but I think there is a situation at the University of Georgia where some guys need to learn from this. Jamon Dumas-Johnson speeding, Jalen Carter in September, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, at 89 and a 45. Listen, I have a 19-year-old that we adopted when he was 15 years old. I think I've said on the show that he had a similar accident, was very lucky not to get injured at all because he didn't hit the light pole. He missed everything and kind of just went off into the woods on Halloween night. And I'm so thankful he's still with us. But he's got a lead foot. He's got a bad problem with driving like that. I got into a bad car accident when I was 16 because I put my foot on the floor there. When you look at insurance rates for men under the age of 25, they're astronomical for a reason, because we like to drive like a bat out of hell when we're at that age. We think we're invincible.
Yeah, we like to do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't all have NIL deals and NFL draft picks in our future and championships behind us. And
right.
I can only imagine how much that stuff compounds. He's not the first high profile athlete to get in trouble and, think that something couldn't happen. And we'll see what happens when the facts do come out about what he was actually doing and what went wrong. But, it seems like he was there and he was involved somewhat, and it's unfortunate. And there's really no way around that. I do want to read Kirby Smart's statement as well, because understandably so, a lot of people are calling for accountability on Kirby Smart's account on his side of things. And, I have no doubt that he will step up to that and he'll face that. And it's going to be a hard, long offseason for Kirby Smart to figure out how to solve these problems. But Kirby Smart's statement came out this morning rather. The charges announced today are deeply concerning, especially as we are still struggling to cope with the devastating loss of 2 beloved members of our community. We'll continue to cooperate fully with the authorities while supporting these families and assessing what we can learn from this horrible tragedy. So,
Wes, and
I'll
hop in here, and Kirby does mean that they are still mourning. I mean, I know we'll get into it, but look at what Nolan Smith and the emotion that he showed today. He wasn't in Athens the night of that. He didn't make the trip back to Georgia after going out to California for the championship game. He stayed out there, and today was his first time talking about it. And I mean, he was bawling, crying at the podium, talking to us. I would imagine that when we hear from Kirby, when we hear from players on this, if it gets brought up this spring, but it absolutely will get brought up with Kirby this spring, and I would imagine it's going to be emotional. You know, the legal side of this and the emotional side of this are very much intertwined, but through the actual accident and the incident that occurred, but they are very separate in terms of the way that it's being handled. Yes, they are being incredibly cooperative with the police. That does not mean that they are not, on the other hand, being still mourning the loss. So they're doing what they have to do legally to handle it, but they absolutely are still mourning this, and he does mean that when he says it.
I'm having some trouble screen sharing, so I'll just read you what Nolan Smith said if you missed the interview, and
I can pull it up, Wes, if you want me to.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were allowed to share the screen, but I did put a link into the comments there. But essentially, Nolan said, "That's my guy. That's one person that never did anything wrong. I get sensitive talking about it just because I love him. He never did anything wrong in his 3 years. He was supposed to graduate. His brother passed like that. I'm sorry to his mama. No one should live like that." And he said that he got emotional because apparently he was in a conversation with the Cincinnati Bengals. They were asking him about it as well, and he got emotional then too. He said he's the juice guy for Georgia, and if you've heard him talk, then you know that that's accurate. Even after he got hurt, he was very much the heartbeat of the team, stuck around and motivated a lot of people, and said in that session with the media today at the Combine that he'll be a resource for Georgia players for years to come. Palmer, looks like you got it pulled up here. I'll let you launch that if you're able to.
I tell you what, man, when he says that about his mom and losing his brother that way, that's a dagger to the heart right there. That's hard to listen to.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I can't hear it, Palmer, but
we've got gremlins tonight, fellas.
It's fine. It's just one of those nights. It happens. We'll get through it. But the fact of the matter is, this is just what's happened this offseason. That's how it's gone for Georgia. And they've got the NFL Combine to look forward to. And on the other hand, they've got a lot of legal hoops and problems, questions to answer. And there are a lot of dots out there from that night and from Georgia's players. Jamon Dumas-Johnson with his own charge, racing, speeding the night after the national championship, like we said. And we're not banging on these guys. We're just telling you what happened. And when there's a pattern, when there are repeated offenses like this, you got to wonder what's going on. Why is it happening, and what will be done to fix it? So that's what we're going to be looking at all offseason, alongside looking at the NFL draft, the Combine, and looking at Georgia spring practice. It's pretty surreal to think about all of these things going on at the same time, but that's the reality for the Dogs right now.
And you mentioned the Combine, and it's unfortunate that this will take away from some of what Georgia did on the field, because rather than media members asking about their 2 straight national championships, asking about their favorite plays during those runs and whatnot, they'll be asking about Jalen Carter and character issues, and bigger program-wide issues. This is the story of the Combine, and I have a very hard time imagining anything that would overtake that. And we are in day 1 of 4 for media.
This isn't just a Georgia player there that got in trouble. This is the projected number 1 pick. I mean, no doubt it's going to be the story of the Combine on day 1.
And afterwards, after everything went down with Jalen not showing up to the interview, again, I don't know if that was included in our live stream or not, but Jalen was scheduled to meet with the media, and that got called off. An NFL spokesperson told us that he was still he and 5 others were still in medical testing. Whether take it for what you want there. But Jalen Carter did not speak with the media. But after that was supposed to be the last media session with players for the day. That obviously didn't occur, but we did hear from NFL GMs and head coaches, a couple of them this afternoon. Majority of them talked on Tuesday, but a couple of them spoke today. And pretty much everyone was asked in some way, shape, or form, either directly about Jalen Carter or indirectly about players and their off-field issues and how they handle that as a part of the draft process as well.
Well, Jake,
I want to make a couple points here real quick though. Malik Savage over here in our comments talking about having players follow the rules. I get that sentiment. I really do. We're talking about 2, maybe 3 guys out of 85 on scholarship and 110 on the entire team. Most of the guys are. It sucks that some guys kind of got a little wild behind the wheel. Again, I'll point to the fact that, if you're under 25 years old, they charge you an arm and a leg for insurance for a reason. Those guys are just prone to being that way. I drove like a maniac when I was that age, still do sometimes, I'm not going to lie, but not reckless driving or anything crazy like that. I want to mention something else too, and this offseason has taught me to respect a comment that I kind of had some criticisms for at the time and then softened up on a little bit later. And it was made by Mark Rick when he said rings collect dust. And it was about the relationships and it was about the bonds formed. And listen, I know why that comment was criticized. I think it was taken out of context. You were talking about a guy having a tender moment with a bunch of seniors. I'm sitting here my second straight off season with Georgia winning a national championship. And, it couldn't be kind of the furthest thing from a lot of our minds right now. Last year it was kind of ridiculous. Most folks were just kind of pissed off that Stetson Bennett was coming back and didn't think that Georgia could repeat. And then he comes back and does it. This year, we're learning that Georgia would trade both of them for the lives of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix. And there are bigger things in this sport of football. And one of those bigger things, in my opinion, is these football players at the University of Georgia realizing that they're not invincible. And listen, this is not just a Georgia thing. I mean, Henry Ruggs, pulled, a stunt like this in the NFL, and it was bad. It was Georgia's situation could have been that bad. It wasn't. I mean, some people lost their lives, but Ruggs took the life of somebody else. And I'm not trying to make comparisons here, but this is something that I really, really hope and pray. And if you pray too, you should do it too, that people learn from this, not just Georgia players, but players in the area, players not in the area, high school players, the 16-year-olds that are going to be coming to drive here soon. I hope everybody learns from this, because ultimately, this could have all been avoided. And Chandler LaCroix and Devin Willock and Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter could be getting ready to be the number 1 pick, and he could have a couple of friends to text when it happened, and he doesn't. And it breaks my heart. And, I just hope everybody learns from it. And obviously I hope Georgia cleans up some of the protocol issues that went into this. People talk about Georgia has a cultural problem. No, Georgia has a protocol problem. Somebody kind of, broke protocol or there wasn't enough oversight there. And there was a vehicle involved. I have a hard time believing it wouldn't have happened in another vehicle. But as of what we understand right now, and I do have a little bit of information here from behind the scenes, it does look like this is kind of very much near the finish line of where this thing is going. And the fact that Jalen Carter was not charged with leaving the scene suggests that he, was at the scene. And unlike what the AJC reported, even though I thought this final report of theirs, or this most recent report of theirs, of Carter shifting his narratives was important. And I think Carter's going to have to answer for that, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to when I said, maybe he panicked, and people panic, man. I mean, look, I'm not excusing whatever happened if anything illegal did happen, but people panic. People don't tell the truth. People fib. People get nervous. And when you look at what he had on the line as a human, I mean, it makes sense. It's not crazy to think. The one thing that I want to make a note of before we move on and actually talk about the rest of the combine. This is a high pressure deal that these players sign up for when they play at Georgia. And that is not the way to blow off steam, no doubt about it. But when you look at what these guys put behind them, the season that they put behind them, the time they invested, the work that they invested, again, it's another human nature thing, man. You won the national championship. You're on top of the world. You got a few weeks before you had to really start thinking about work again. You think you're invincible. I mean, it's tragic. And I expect that Georgia will be reaching those heights again at some point in the next few years. And as you said, Jake, hopefully, prayerfully, the protocols are much safer and in line for everybody, so this never happens again. Jake, you did write today about the feedback that you heard, that we heard, and Palmer, that you heard as well, from some coaches, from executives at the combine. What's the general sense there? Is it we don't really know enough yet, or is it already kind of altering how these people are thinking about Jalen Carter?
I think everybody seems to be in fact-finding mode. I think, and listen, everybody's going to do their due diligence. And some people are probably going to be turned off by it a little bit, and some aren't. I'm really interested to see. All right, what's Jalen Carter basing all this off of? What did they get wrong? What's going to be his rebuttal here? Because he's going to have to turn himself in. I think that's going to be the first, shoe to drop there. And then, from there, what is he going to have to kind of be able to, go on his side? I mean, or is that just kind of the stock answer that everybody gives whenever they're accused of something? Because we've seen it time and time again. People say, I will be exonerated, and exoneration doesn't really come that easily. So I'm wondering if he's got some proof or some stuff to kind of, use to defend himself on this.
Yeah, and I'll be very curious to see what March 15th in that Georgia Pro Day looks like. Is he in attendance? Yep. Is he working out like he had originally planned? Is he answering questions from the media? I mean, that's typically not all that organized of a media event. It's kind of more, scrums that just occur.
You get what you can get.
Yeah, I mean, Wes, I remember me and you talked to Quay Walker last year, just the two of us, as he was kind of walking out of the building.
Just waiting for people to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what does that day look like? What does March 14th, the day before that, and the start of spring practice look like? How many people, who all is in attendance, and what is said by Kirby and UGA in an off season that has included lots has occurred since the national championship.
Yeah. Jake, you nailed it, man. It feels like the furthest thing possible. It really does seem like an alternate timeline. It's just crazy.